I actually ended up in a psychiatric hospital here in Portugal after attempted suicide. Trump phoned me up and he went to me, I'd like to meet you. I'd like to be involved with Lennox Lewis. I actually negotiated and had done a deal with Tyson Fury to sign with me. Whatever anyone wants to say about Frank Warren, he is the only true boxing person out there. Eddie likes to be a star, and I don't think promoters should be stars. Don King wants to control the referee, the judges, everything else.
Ben Shalom has now signed a deal with Ben Shalom.
Is he a boxing partner?
Yes.
Oh.
Hello and welcome to Clubhouse Boxing. I'm Charlotte Daly. I'm your host alongside Spencer Oliver, and we've travelled to the sunny Portugal to interview KELLIE Maloney. How are you doing?
I'm all right. It was sunny till Spencer arrived. I don't see that nickname they gave you in boxing, the Omen. It's a very unlucky nickname.
I know. Do you know what? Since when was that? 1998, when the career was over. I think this bad weather's sort of followed me all around, Kelly. I mean, can you believe we're here? We're in Portugal. We got up this morning. And it was bright sunshine. It was beautiful. We went around. We went for a lovely coffee, didn't we? Went down to your place for local coffee. We went up to your house. That was unbelievable, by the way. We'll talk about that in a little bit. And then we set out for the meeting. And what's happened?
KELLIE even said earlier that the pigs wouldn't even be out in this sort of weather, and here we are trying to under some tarpaulin.
Doing an interview.
We're obviously going to talk about your career as a promoter, as a manager, get your take on some of the stuff that's going on nowadays in boxing, and of course the transition from Frank to KELLIE Maloney. I want to start with one of the most prolific boxers that you worked with, Mr. Lennox Lewis. How did you end up working with Lennox? How did that relationship all start?
Well, it just happened. I've always been a little bit lucky. I say it's the luck of the Irish. Out of the blue, I got a phone call from Lawrence Lustig and Ken Gorman telling me about a British heavyweight who could win the world title and won the Olympic gold medal. And I went, no, there's no British heavyweight. And he said, Lennox Lewis. And I went, he's Canadian. They went, no, check it out. He was born in West Ham. So I started checking. And then I realised Lennox's brother, Dennis, who had a different surname, was a friend of my brother, and they knew each other. So I made these arrangements to meet Lennox Lewis, and I didn't know how I was going to do this because I was a small hall promoter. I was £100,000 in debt at the time, and I thought my pub was like sinking. And I met Lennox, so I thought, okay. So I got an American Express credit card. So Lennox's lawyer, John Hornerworth at the time, who's still operating, I believe, said, we want to fly first class, we want to have 4 days in London, and we want to stay in a 5-star hotel. So thank heavens my American Express had 10,000 limit on it. So I arranged all that. And then I bumped into John Hollins, the ex-Chelsea player, who was working with a company called Levitt Group, who wanted to form a sports promotional group. And we were talking, and I said, you know what? If you signed a heavyweight that could win the world title and it was British, you could open your own bank account. And he went, yeah, but he said, the only good heavyweight is Frank Bruno, who's British, and he's lost to, I went, no, there's one called Lennox Lewis. So he said, but he's Canadian. I went, Canadian, because his mother moved into Canada at the age of 12, because now I checked all the history.
Yeah.
So they took me in to meet the boss, Roger Levitt, who run the big financial company called Levitt Finance, and they had offices in Great Portland Street. It was so posh. And anyway, I went in there, so I met Levitt, and Levitt said to me, okay, if you can sign him, we'll take all your debts off and wipe everything off. And in the meantime, I was still working with Ambrose, so I mentioned about Ambrose. Well, they said, no, we can't take Ambrose at the time. And at the time, we were trying to make Michael Watson and Nigel Benn. And but the money was astronomical. So I asked the Levitt Group if they would do it, and they went, well, if you sign Lennox, we will do that group fight. So I met with Lennox, and he came in, and we chatted, and I said to John Hornerworth, they told me who was trying to sign him. Mickey Duff had met with him, Don King, Donald Curry, Main Events, Bob Arum. So I thought, what chance have I got? I went, what sort of contract do you want? He went, what do you mean, what sort of contract? I said, well, what do you want in your contract? He went, we want this, and that. I went, put it in and send it to me. I thought, well, it's they can either say no or yes, the Levitt Group. So he sends it to me. So they went back to back, and I went in and I said, "This is the contract they want." So Levitt came in and he went, "You go on a plane to America and you sign him." I went, "Oh, okay." So I booked up my ticket. I said, "I booked my ticket, Mr. Levitt." I said, "I'm flying British Airways." I said, "I'm going economy to save money." He went, "No one in my company goes economy." Spoke to he said, "Book a ticket, first class British Airways." I've never first class. so, so I flew to New York in a really nice hotel, and we finally got the deal done. And April that year, they came into London and signed the contract. And at that time, Levitt went, "We'll do the Ben and Watson fight." So we done that in Finsbury Park in its head.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and that's how it all started.
Oh my gosh, wow. Well, when you think of kind of Lennox's career, everyone jumps to the Frank Bruno moments and things like that. But there's actually other fights that I think were really defining in his career. If you think of like the Gary Mason fight, I know he was European champ before that, but that was for the British title.
That was for the British and European
Yeah.
and Commonwealth.
Yeah.
Because Lennox had beaten Glenn McCrory, Derek Williams to take the, he'd beaten every fight that had been put in front of him. But he hadn't won the heart of the British public
Why do you think people didn't latch on to Lennox straight away?
because of his Canadian accent, and because people like Colin Hart and that were so pro Mickey Duff at the time, and all the journalists were, that they never saw Lennox. The only one who was really behind us was Ken Gorman. And then obviously Jeff Powell came. Then people started to realise that I had the golden goose. People started to realise, and yeah, and then that.
I think it was because Lennox won the gold, obviously, for Canada, and he had the accent. Although he was from British heritage and he left here when he was 12, people acceptance was a tough thing back then.
And
Do
also
you know what I mean? I think
started
that was
professionally, like lots of his team was all American as
Yeah.
well. So I think
Well,
that
they were the best at that time. I mean, that was. But and I took Lennox to Millwall when Millwall were in the old First Division and West Ham were there, and Lennox. We made Lennox say he was a West Ham supporter. I used to have to educate about all the players and everything.
because he was quite big on that as well, wasn't he?
Well, yeah.
Yeah, no, but I mean, he sold himself as that, this big West
Well, we've
Ham.
done Football Fantasy with
Yeah,
Sky together.
that's right.
Anyway, so I take him to Millwall, and we're sitting with all the mad Millwall supporters because I'm a fanatical Millwall supporter, and he had a West Ham scarf on, and all the boys are looking at it. They went, "Who's that, Frank? Get him out there." I went, "Okay." All right. I said, "Lennox, when you're sitting here," they didn't realise it was Lennox. And he stood up, and I went, "This is Lennox Lewis." I went, "Oh, Lennox, straight to me. You sit there."
Really?
yeah, suddenly it's fine.
It's fine, yeah. So it was like, and they were like getting pictures with him. They all great. They're going to take that West Ham scarf off. I would take a picture with you.
Brilliant.
It was really. But going back to the Gary Mason fight, Gary had never won. And I thought, this is impossible. I thought, you're losing it, Mickey. And Mickey was saying there, and he was saying about everything else, like saying that I was a pretender and that I was going to finish this fighter's career and that Mickey would rebuild it after this fight and everything else. Anyway, and we knew that Gary had a bad eye. And we had a trainer at that time, an American trainer. What's his name? He was an ex-Marine. And we had there was him and Harold Knight. And Courtney Shan, all the Lennox's little team, and in the gym, I can't think of the trainer's name. That's really bugging me. Anyway, every sparring partner we had, he used to get tape and put it around the eye, and he'd say to Lennox,
"Just jab that.
Just jab that eye. Just jab that eye." And that's what in the fight.
In the fight, the swelling straight away. I think it was like 5th, 6th round. The eye.
And
was
see,
gone.
and these are the things you learn when you work with these old trainers and real boxing people.
But that was very much the coming of age fight for Lennox, wasn't it? Because that was when the acceptance started coming and people were appreciating just how good he was and all that. And
then after that, and after that, Seth Abraham from HBO flew in and took myself and the backer, who was Panos Eliades now, the Greek gentleman, to a big meal, and we started talking, and he went, "We'd like to sign Lennox to a big contract. But he has to have a fight with someone," because then we moved up in the world ratings. They said, "He's going to have to fight Razor Ruddock." So I said, "Yeah." So they said, "This is the contract." And it was like, my eyes nearly fell out of my head when I see the figures in the contract. Compared to today, they're not massive, but in them days, they were unbelievable. Anyway, so he agreed. So his first fight was against Mike Weaver. And then HBO got us into an eliminator with Razor Ruddock, and Don King had Razor Ruddock at the time, So the fight was to be done. They gave us one more fight after Weaver. We fought a fight in Atlantic City. On another American TV channel to build Lennox's profile up at one of Donald Trump's hotels. Anyway, so after the fight, Trump saw it, and Trump wanted a piece of Lennox. So Trump phoned me up, and he went to me, "I'd like to meet you. I'd like to be involved with Lennox Lewis." And I sort of said to him, excuse me. I said, "Lennox is completely under contract. You can't." Well, I want him. What I want, I normally get. I mean, this was Trump in them days, younger.
Yeah.
Anyway, so he said, "Next time you come to Atlantic City, I want to meet with you." So I did meet with him, but nothing ever happened because we were under contract. And then Don King invited us to Cleveland to watch Razor Ruddock fight.
Yeah.
So King phoned me up. So the phone rang. He went, "Is that Maloney?" I can't do his accent. I went, "Yes." He went, "I have to tell you something. You're being used." And he said, "Like us," and he used the N-word, "like us," obviously.
Yeah.
And he said, he said, "You're Irish." He said, "You've been persecuted all your life, the same as us." He kept on his rabbit. And he went, "I want you to sign this contract." I went, "I can't sign any contract, Don." I said, "I don't have final say in Lennox Lewis." I said, "It's down to the group of us." I said, "And obviously it's got to be run by Lennox's lawyer," because King wanted to fight in Cleveland. And at this time, we'd signed a deal with Main Events, who were going to be our American promoters, Dan Dover. And I learned so much with the Main Events people. It was unbelievable, a real education. And anyway, it went along. King made a few promises to me, personal promises and everything else, which I had to decline. Anyway, and then we won the fight, the rights for the fight to be staged at Earl's Court. Because I remember then we were trying to negotiate it, and the money King was offering was so good. And at this time, Levitt was still part of the backroom team with Panos Eliades, and all Levitt could see was the money. And at this time, Panos as well. And my argument was, if we go to New York, if we go to Cleveland, everything's against us. Don King would control the referee, the judges, everything else. So I phoned up Dan Dover and told him, I said, "I'm having problems here, Dan." So Dan flew in, and he came in the next day. So he came to the office, and we were having breakfast in the office, and they were saying, "Look at the figures." So they said, so Dan went, "Listen to what Frank's going to tell us." So I went through everything else, saying exactly what I said, and Dan went, "Let me tell you something." He went, I want the fight in London with Frank." He said, "I tell you what I do." He said, "If Lennox loses, I will pay you the difference that Don King's offering due to what we're going to pay now." He said, "Because if we have the fight here, we control everything." And we did, you know, and we won the fight. And Dan Dover went, "They're so lucky to have you in their corner, because otherwise
It would have been a different story.
different story."
With that fight, he was almost like a slight underdog going into it, but then obviously knocked him down in the first like 10 seconds or so. But that fight was then, as you said, about setting up the winner of Holyfield versus Bowe. But then obviously the Bowe fight never happened. And it makes me think now in my generation of like the AJ Fury fight. We keeps getting touted, but then not happening. It was almost the same with Lennox and Bowe. Like, how close did we get, and what was the reason?
But I remember that fight. That's when Colin Hart changed his mind. Come and Lennox Lewis.
Yeah, Riddick dropped the belt in the bin, didn't he, as opposed to fighting it. It was a repeat of the Olympic finals, and we know that Lennox kicked his backside in the Olympic finals, didn't he? And I don't think Riddick Bowe actually fancied it.
Riddick was managed by a guy called Rock Newman. He was a real character. He wasn't a boxing person. He was a disc jockey in America. But obviously he knew he had a golden goose. And we negotiated. We sort of got to the point where they wanted to pay us no money at all, you know, and I, being cheeky as I was, said, "Okay, we'll fight for 10%. And I actually said, Lennox said he'll fight for nothing. And again, that's when they decided to drop the belt in the bin, because they realised the fight was serious. And then we kept trying to negotiate. And I remember I flew to America to meet with them, and we went, and there was myself, Dan Dover, our lawyer, Rock Newman, HBO people, and HBO wanted the fight. And the negotiations went on, and we couldn't get it. And I flew back, and they wanted the press conference to know how it went. So I went to the press conference, and I christened Bowe, Chicken Bowe. And one time he saw me in and he chased me through the hotel in New York, because this was when he was fighting. Who was he fighting? Gallotta. So he chased me through the hotel. Thank heavens he never caught me. Anyway, so at this press conference, we're there, and I had put this box underneath the table, and I went, "We've got a visitor today. We've got Chicken Bowe here." So everyone looked at the door, thinking he was going, because I went like that. And I flew, and the chicken flew out of the box, and it flew all around the piss room.
Oh, mad times.
You know,
Yeah.
and you don't get that no more. You know, I mean, that was real.
It's a shame, though, that we actually missed that fight, isn't it? It's one of those fights, when you look back in history.
But it was actually made.
Yeah, that's
But
what
Lennox
exactly-
lost all of them a call,
Yeah,
and it fell through.
yeah. It's one of those fights, and I think that we might be in the same situation now with, tragic circumstances surrounding Anthony Joshua, and you know, out in Nigeria just over the Christmas period. You go,
But I
we
don't- yeah,
don't know what Joshua's doing. Tyson Fury, if we thought it's been one of those fights where you thought we're closer than ever, now we're further away than ever, and it seems like we're back in that position. And I worry we don't get that fight
Yeah,
now.
but I mean, this is going to upset a lot of people. To be honest, AJ and Tyson Fury doesn't really mean much no more, because they're both lost their world titles. It means something to the British public, and it means something to promoters, because it will generate money. But to the real boxing fan, it's two has-beens fighting each other. Sorry about that, boys, but it's true. You know,
You don't think it's got global substance anymore? No.
No.
Yeah. It's,
You know, I mean, to be honest, boxing is not what it was, and I'm not saying that out of anything. No, boxing is more about entertainment now. It's like theatre with blood now. You've got YouTubers, you've got misfit boxing, you've got every Tom, Dick, and Harry wanting to be a boxer now. You know, I think we got someone in Portugal who boxed Joey
Essex.
Essex.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, please, this guy's got millions of followers in Portugal. Joey Essex is a big follower. I think the fight took place in Manchester,
Yeah.
didn't it?
Yeah, it was on the Misfits show, wasn't it? Yeah.
I mean, please.
Yeah.
You mentioned the Holyfield fight there. I want your take on it now with Lennox. Like, obviously, the first one's draw. Lennox got the second one. People are still disputing it. Like, do you think it was a Lennox win in the second one? Do you think it was a draw in the first one?
I think he won the second one.
Yeah.
Sorry, he won the first one clearly. I remember my quote, and Don King told me to shut up the press conference. I went, even Stevie Wonder could see who won that fight.
Well, the first fight was the closest one, the first fight Lennox won easily.
Second
I think you got a draw, and the
I think-
second one was closer. They give it to Lennox.
I think Lennox, because of what happened and all the bad publicity. I mean, who was the mayor, Giuliani of New York at that time? He even come to see us and apologised to us for that result in New York.
So you think they were almost compensating a bit more in the second one there?
I think Lennox won it.
Yeah.
But it was a lot closer, as Spencer said. If that one was a draw, I wouldn't have moaned.
Yeah. Was Lennox bigger in the States than he was in the UK? I know he was when they started, but the UK fans turned and they loved him.
I mean,
Yeah, he
when
come
you
good.
think how many, at least 14,000 came out when he fought Holyfield at Madison Square Garden.
Yeah.
And there was at least 10 when we fought Holyfield in the rematch. But that was great negotiation with Don King. I mean, see, legend Don King. We had to go to his office in Miami, in Florida.
Yeah.
So we're there and we're negotiating. And all around the table's massive. I mean, so we're sitting there, and some points King had given us, and King went. And I remember Tim Witherspoon and Larry Hose telling me things about Don King. They said, you've got to be very careful with Don King. You think he's not listening, but he hears everything in his office. So I said, oh, okay. So we're sitting there, and King came to a couple of points, and King got up and he went, big, massive guy, he went, Maloney, I'm going to leave you to negotiate with your team. He said, I'm going to go outside. So off he went. And I went to my team like this, and they went, what? And I pointed up to the ceiling. And I said, we're going to go outside and negotiate. And all of a sudden, food, I said, can you take the food out into the grounds? Because it was massive grounds.
Yeah.
So King came, he said, what do you mean get out in the ground? He said, I'm serving you food. I said, Don, we need some fresh air. We're going to talk outside. He was fuming.
'Cause he couldn't listen to it.
Yeah, he couldn't listen to it.
So while we're on that Lennox Lewis chat, Kelly, I've got to bring it up. I want to talk about the famous Union Jack suit. Now, I know there's a story behind this suit and why you actually wore it and what you done there. But I mean, talk to us a little bit about that. I mean, that was at the time very flamboyant and very gutsy to wear that in the ring. And what was the reason behind you wearing that Union Jack suit?
Well, one was to get the people to understand Lewis was British,
Yeah.
but it was an old East End tailor and stallholder in Petticoat Lane, because I had my offices in Petticoat Lane there, and I used to walk down there all the time. The market guys used to always see me and they'd like chat. I'd go to the pub at lunchtime, we'd sit there chatting and everything else. And this old tailor, used to always buy tickets off of Mickey Duff's show. There were two brothers that had the stalls down in Petticoat Lane. Oh, what's their name? They're big boxing fans. They came to your fights as well. Always bought tickets. Always had ringside seat. Anyway, and their mate was this tailor. So he went, you keep on that Lennox being British, don't you? I go, yeah. And he said, why don't you wear a Union Jack suit in the... I went, a Union Jack suit in the corner? I went, that costs a fortune to make. He went, no. He said, we've got a flag. I said, sorry? He said, we got a flag. We stole it from a golf club. I said, it's massive. They went, and you're only little. He said, I could make you a jacket and a pair of trousers out of it. Come to my shop. So I thought, oh, well, no. So I went to the shop. They measured me up. In a couple of weeks, suit turned up at my office.
No way. Hold on. So okay, I didn't know this part of the story. So so the suit that you was wearing, that Union Jack suit that you famously wore in all those Lennox Lewis fights, was actually a flag nicked from a golf course. That's incredible. That's brilliant. I never knew that.
Look, you said you were going to talk about it earlier. So what happened with Lennox in the end then? How did you end up splitting with him?
Well, we had a great relationship. When he fell out with Panos Eliades, I was kept on as the manager. I think we had a certain trust in each other, and belief. But Lennox wanted to bring in a business manager, Adrian Ogun, Nigerian, and he originally started off. I remember Dennis Lewis brought him in the early days to help with Lennox's PR. And the first meeting I had with him, I went to Dennis. Dennis, be careful with him. There's something about him I don't trust. I said, he's very ambitious. Dennis went, he'll do as I say. He'll jump. If I say jump, he'll say how high. I went, I hope you're right, Dennis. Anyway, he wormed his way in and he actually got Lennox to get rid of his own brother. There's a lot more to it, but that's was work. Anyway, and we were doing the fights, and they wanted to go for South Africa because he tried to cut me out of all the negotiations. Adrian Ogun did, and said that I was just and they wanted me not to be able to talk to the press no more without them clearing everything I said, and I said, I'm not doing that. I said, I've been Lennox's manager for 12 years. I said, I haven't made very many wrong decisions. They said, okay, we're fighting in South Africa. It's a warm-up fight, and the next fight will be against Mike Tyson. I went, okay, not a problem. And I said, fine. I said, okay, I'll go to South Africa and I'll sort out the training camp facilities and everything else. And they went, no, we're going to train in Las Vegas. I said, sorry? I said, you're going to train in Las Vegas? Las Vegas is 2,000 feet below sea level. Joburg is 7,000 feet above sea level. I said, so how are we going to try? He said, well, we've got Lennox a part in a movie. I went, oh, I said, what is it? They went, Ocean's 11, if I'm not mistaken. They went, I went, what, is he the main star? They went, oh, no, he's got a little walk. I said, it's ridiculous. They went, and Klitschko had a part in it as well. Yeah. I went, no. I said, this can't happen. They went, well, we've signed the agreement now. It's done. I went, we're so wrong. So I sent Joe Dunbar, who was Lennox's sports physiologist and worked with me, and I still got a great relationship with him. He worked with many of my fighters, actually. He's very good. And I went to him, and he went back, you're right. He said, he can't fight. So I said, so I sent Lennox the letter saying, Lennox, you've got to come to South Africa. And I went through it all. And Lennox phoned me up and said, I'll come to South Africa if Rackman gets there before me. So Rackman came in 4 weeks before Lennox. So I phoned. I said, Ratman's here. He went, okay, I'm not coming. We haven't done the filming. Lennox came in. I think it might have been 7 days, at most 10 days before. And you could see he was like, and I remember Emmanuel Stewart, because Colin Hart asked him, and Emmanuel Stewart said at the press conference, we're world travellers. That doesn't bother us, which was a very big statement to make, because Colin Hart told me after about it. And I watched Lennox go running that next morning after, and he was absolutely dead. I could see he was dead. Anyway, he trained, and we done a public workout training, and I watched it, and I wasn't myself. After a couple of the press guys came up to me, the ones who knew me, they went, "What's wrong? You're not yourself. What are you concerned about?" I went, Nothing," and I selected about 6 press guys who I trust. I said, "Come," and I took them for a drink, and I went, I said, "I'm going to tell you something," I said, "but I'm going to deny I've even said this." I went, "I would put my house on Ratman winning this fight." I said, "I've watched Lennox train, I've watched him run." I said, "The mistake he's made is not getting here in time." I said, "And that could cost him his fight." Anyway, we know what happened.
Yeah.
The press guys came up to me after they were over the moon, because they did they had a little bet. And then Adrian Oden called me and said to me, "You're going to have to take the blame for Lennox losing." I went, "Sorry?" I went, "I'm not taking the blame for Lennox losing." I said, "That's my reputation." I didn't even see Lennox after the fight. I got on the plane, the next day, and just flew straight home. I wouldn't and I was working with I can't remember who his name was, a light middleweight fighter at the time from one of the Eastern Bloc country, who was going to fight the really good Mexican at the time, who's now a promoter, Golden Boy.
Oh, Oscar De La Hoya.
Oscar De La Hoya.
Yeah.
So I had to fly to Los Angeles to train him. I was training him at Freddie Roach's gym, and that fight never happened because Oscar offered something bigger, so we got paid off anyway for that fight. And I got a phone call telling me that they were calling a press conference and they were planning on sacking me, Adrian. So before they could sack me, I announced I retired. Anyway, later on, they took me to court. I'm not sure Lennox knew they took me to court, because I don't think Lennox had anything to do with this, to be honest. All of a sudden, there was a bit of hustle and tussle over Lennox's side, and the barrister stood up and asked, could they talk to the judge? So the 2 barristers went up to the front. They came back and they went, "Frank, can we have a word with you?" They went, "They don't want to go through with the court case." I went, "Sorry?" I said, "But they went, they want to pay you X amount of money, and they want you to sign a confidentiality form." I went, "I'll take the money, but I'm not signing the form." So I took the money, never signed the form, because I knew I was in the right. And to this day, I still believe Lennox never knew about the court
Have
case.
you ever had a conversation with Lennox since? Do you talk to him now?
I not really. I had a.
Oh.
It's a bit of a crazy situation. I had a fighter called Darren Sutherland, who I thought was going to be the next big. He was a great fighter.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, he committed suicide, and I had a terrible incident. I had a heart attack, and I had a heart attack at the ringside on the Friday night before, when John McDermott beat Tyson Fury.
Yeah,
and
that's
even
right.
you believe that fight?
Absolutely. First fight, without a doubt. I was there, and the referee, wasn't he? The referee had boxed Tyson Fury's dad, or lost to Tyson Fury's dad before.
John McDermott.
John McDermott. Sorry, John McDermott's dad.
McDermott.
That's right. And
Knocked
that's.
out the referee.
I remember being there for that fight and just thinking, yeah, that was one of those ones. It was a very controversial
and I got in the
decision.
ring and I went to the referee. Even when Dick Turpin robbed you, he wore a mask.
And that's right. And you had the heart attack at ringside there, then, didn't you? That's right.
And then I got called up before the board and fined for my comments about Dick Turpin. Anyway, in that time, David Price had fallen out with Adam Booth.
Yeah.
And they were and I decided I'd go after David Price because I love heavyweights. I had Julius Francis. I had what's the Nigerian, the big tall Nigerian, skinny. He got shot in the back of the neck.
James Obola.
James Obola was such a nice guy. I had him all out here training. I had Bob McDermott. I had all these heavyweights. I used to love the heavyweights, and the small guys in between was a bit hard for me.
Yeah. Yeah, you did have a little mix like that, didn't you? You had Toncho Tonchev, Patrick Mullins, all the smaller guys and the big ones.
Yeah. And so I'm in hospital and I'm like, and I'm on the phone trying to sign David Price, and I've just had my operation on my heart, so they've got me in this recovery ward, and my office was coming. I had my secretary up at the time, and they're all sitting around the bed. It's all right. And the telephone, and sister came up. She went to me, "This can't go on. You've just had a heart attack. You're supposed to be recovering." I went, "I've got to get this done." I said, "My life depends on it." She went, "Your life was nearly dead not long ago." Anyway, so she said, "I tell you what," she said, "there are other people in here that are recovering. We need the peace and quiet. I will give you my office for 2 hours, and then you got to stop." So in that 2 hours, I managed to get David Price signed up.
That's crazy.
So so Price went on a great winning every box. Audley Harrison won everything. We got to the stage where we had to make Price against an American fighter to get him in the world ranking, and I had a good agent who also was my American agent for Lennox, Don Majeski.
Yeah.
Anyway, so he came up with what was his name? Not Tony Thompson.
Tony Thompson, yeah. What's Tony Thompson?
Clubhouse Boxing is powered by our friends at Betway. For exclusive acquisition offers, free bets, and much more, download the Betway app now.
So we made the Tony Thompson fight, and we know the result. David got knocked out, and I made the point. My job was always to protect David, and I made the point that he got caught with a lucky punch behind the ear.
Wait, didn't Tony Thompson though? Didn't he then fail a drugs test after that or something?
No.
Was it him?
We'll get to that story.
All right. No, just come to me.
Stop
Just come to me there.
Stop rushing. Anyway, so the time had come to bring David back in the ring. I just lost my contract with Sky Television. I've been with Sky for ages. What happened when I was parted with Lennox, I was contacted by Sky and asked if I wanted to go do boxing, and I said, "Yeah, I'm going to stay in boxing." But I met Frank Warren here in Portugal. You know, he's got a house here as well, and we used to see every so often. And we were chatting, and he went, "What are you going to do?" He went, "Why don't you come to work for me as a consultant?" And I said, "Well, I've just been sort of offered a deal with Sky." He went, "Well, we can do them fights. If you come with me, they'll give the fights to Sports Network." So we went out, me and Frank, and he said, "You know, you've done so much. It's time to enjoy life as well." And he offered me such a good deal, I couldn't say no. So I said, "Okay, I'll take it." And we got so drunk that day on Whitehall. Seriously, I was so ill. I was in bed for 2 days after on the beach bar that Frank used to like. Oh, I mean, it was like everyone had gone, and we're still sitting there drinking, putting the world to right and decide what. Anyway, so I signed the deal with Frank, and I went to work with Frank for 5 years. And then obviously, it wasn't really working out. Having two egos didn't work out that well.
But you know what? It was with you and Frank, though. It was always one of those relationships, weren't it? Where right at the beginning, you sort of started together, you both went away, done your own thing, then you end up back together again, then you go away. It was always one of those ones. How do you think that you both kept getting attracted back together again, working together?
I think because we're both boxing people.
Yeah.
Right.
In fairness, you know, whatever anyone wants to say about Frank Warren, he is the only true boxing person out there. Now, you know, Eddie's not a boxing person. Sorry, Eddie, but you're not. Your dad was much better than you were. Eddie's much more into the entertainment side of it. And I think Eddie's the one who's sort of brought boxing into the entertainment world. You know, and he's done some great deals and great money for his fighters. So we can't, you know, you can't. But Eddie likes to be a star. And I don't think promoters should be stars. The fighters should be the star. If I get sued, you're going to have to pay the legal.
Invoices to them.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. No, it's great. It's great to hear your take on it, because you've been out of the game now, and like boxing was like, you know, what it was back in the day in the 90s, early 2000s and all that, and it has changed so much.
I mean, when I go back, you know, I look at the people I work. I mean, there was Harry Holland was a promoter. Billy Ed was a promoter when I was there. And there were so many small promoters, and I was in that group. You know, we were struggling. I was very lucky that I signed Lennox Lewis, and I went on. Frank Warren was good at what he done.
Yeah.
And you know, he was always going to be the next Mickey Duff, take over from Duff, you know. And I did for a little while with Lennox, obviously, because you got the heavyweight champion of the world. You're the kingpin. I actually negotiated and had done a deal with Tyson Fury to sign with me. people. We met in Chinese restaurant in Chislehurst. It was about 11 o'clock at night. Him and his party all turned up, and they all came down, and we sat there. We were in the restaurant till gone 1:30. I kept the Chinese to keep it open. But you never see people eat food so much. I swear, these trappers can eat food. It was coming out.
Who picks up the tab? You?
Yeah, I did.
Oh no.
I did with my sponsor, Tommy from Suffolk Metals.
Right.
Anyway.
Oh yeah, he was a lovely guy. Yeah, I remember him.
So we agreed the deal. We shook hands on the deal. £100,000. Signed the contract. X amount per fight. Everything else. They went away. 3 days later, I still hadn't had the contract back. So I phoned up Peter Fury, who was the only one who was the most sensible one at the meeting, to be honest. And I said, Peter, I haven't heard from you. He went, I'll get back to you. He phoned me back. He went, I don't. He said, I gave you my word. The deal was done. He went, but someone else has got involved. I won't say who it was. And he wants another 50,000. I went, I'm not paying the 50,000. I went, we done a deal. I said, no, it's principle. I went. He said, well, he's been offered it by another top promoter. I thought it was Barry Hearns, because Barry was... So I phoned up Barry. Barry, you're entitled to have him, blah, blah, blah. Barry went, I would give him £150,000 to sign the contract. You know, Barry. Anyway, it turns out it was his son's boxing there. And his daughter's boxing there. She just had a good week.
Mick Hennessy.
Mick Hennessy, yeah. Mick Hennessy gave him the money. So that was one of, but it was... I have always been a thing, if I say something and agree to something, I will stick to that.
What do you think about the fact that Tyson Fury's making a comeback again? You know, it's retired 5 times, but back again now.
Well, it's, that's Tyson Fury. What can you say? I think the mistake was when he left his uncle, Peter Fury. I think he was a great trainer. And yeah. So
What do you think about the current state of boxing now? Like,
I paid £1,000 food for, never got the fight.
no way.
Good Chinese though.
That's the best Chinese. They love me in that Chinese
I
shop.
bet they did. Yeah, Kelly, what do you think about the current state of boxing at the moment? Like with the changing of the stuff, what we talked about with the misfits and everything else. Like, do you think it's going in the right direction, or do you think that boxing's losing its?
I think boxing, unfortunately, it's hard because there's not many small hall promoters, and I think the British Boxing Board of Control have got a lot to do with this. They're not supporting small hall boxers. Oh. They're not. I don't think they're doing their job properly. I mean, how could they sanction AJ against the YouTuber? I know for a fact that I had Julius Francis, and he was a reasonable fight. He won the British title, but before he got that far, I had a fight made for him in Russia because I had a lot of contacts in Russia. Good money fight for him. So I took it to the board, and they refused because this Russian was an outstanding amateur, and they said Julius didn't have the experience. Now they've let a former world heavyweight champion, an Olympic gold medalist, fight a YouTuber.
Yeah.
And they're going to say, but it didn't happen in Britain. But they still have to sanction the fight if AJ was British licensed. Now, if he wasn't British licensed, then all right, they're in the clear. But they were at the ringside, and I bet they took their percentages. British Boxing Board of Control are the board of no control in today's market, seriously.
Yeah. Well, that's even like we were talking about in the build up to the AJ fight with Jake Paul, the fact that a lot of people are going over to the likes of Florida. Like there's been fighters before when they've failed drugs tests and they've still been allowed to fight in Florida. And we were also questioning the authenticity or the credibility of a board like that is still going to put on those fights when people have failed tests or there's missed matches and they're happy to put on.
And also his governing body. How could you rank Jake Paul in the world rankings? Who's he fought?
What was he, 15 in the WBA?
Yeah, he's dropped out now, but he was 15. Yeah.
But I mean, how could you even rank him?
Yeah.
I could take John McDermott, Julius Francis, who are now in their 50s, train them for 6 weeks, and they would beat him.
Oh.
You know, I've heard so many stories about the contract and things like that. I don't know if they're true or not, so you can't really say. But I heard one fighter that he fought was told that he could box him, but he wasn't allowed to let his punches go. And in fairness, Mike Tyson has actually openly said that.
Oh.
So it must be true. You know, I thought when that fight was made, great for AJ's bank account, and great for Eddie Hearn, and great you know, if I had a fight and I was offered that fight, I probably would not want to take the fight, but I'd have to take the fight to the fighter. And if the fighter says he wants it, you got to take it, because what people forget is the fighter employs you. You don't employ the fighter. This is the thing what's wrong with boxing now. The managers think they're employing the fighters, but they're not. The fighter's employing you.
Yes.
You know, your job is just to advise him and get the best deals for him. But the fighter must have the final. All my fighters always had the final say.
No.
I would take the fight and say, right, this is what you're being offered. This is the fight. Do you want it?
Yeah.
And that's how we would do business.
I want to ask you, mentioned it earlier about Sky, and it just got me thinking about the fact that at the moment a lot of boxing is on DAZN. It's kind of on the app as such, but Ben Shalom has now signed a deal with BB. Ben Shalom.
Is he a boxing partner?
Yes.
Oh,
The boxing promoter. He's doing, I think, was it 4 or 5 shows
Yeah.
a year with BBC? Is it good to have boxing back on terrestrial TV? And do you think
Well, it
that's
is. It's-
longevity in that?
well, it is if he's getting paid, and the fighters are getting paid well. That's another thing I hate about boxing. I hear fighters are there fighting and not getting paid. How can you be a professional fighter, get in the and I know this is the truth, because I've had 2 fighters phone me up and ask me about this. They've had to sell their tickets, their opponent's wages in tickets before they could eat, and then anything other about that, they would get some money.
That happens. That happens very often. And a lot of
think
people don't know about that. You got to cover your opponent's
Yeah.
purse before you get your purse. If you don't do that, a lot of fighters are actually paying to fight
No.
at that stage.
Well,
no,
I
it's
know,
good, yeah.
I know these 2 fighters. They've had 2 fights and they've not received a penny. And that is the most dangerous sport in the world.
Mm.
No matter when going back to people I spoke about, Harry Holland, Billy Ed, myself, Vince Heckman, they're awesome. We made sure every fight always got paid, even if we lost money on the shows. Nowadays, I've heard that doesn't happen. So you know that's so bad. But so David Price had to go back there now. Sorry.
So,
Yeah, so
Yeah, that's right. That's good. It's a great chat.
So Pricey, so we had a meeting in London, and David wanted the rematch, and I insisted that we shouldn't have the rematch. I said, look, rematches don't always work out right. The fight loses money. The same result happens if you go the way I want, and I picked 4 opponents, and I knew if he'd beat these 4, he would have got a world title fight, because at that time the world champions were doing and looking for what they thought would be easy fights.
Yeah.
So I was going to get him 4 knockout wins, because that's my job.
Yeah.
Dig up the graveyard.
That's it. Yeah.
And-
Yeah. Get the names on the record and get yourself into that position
Yeah.
to get the world title fight.
But he insisted on the rematch, and I said, I'm not doing the rematch. He went, and his lawyer was there, and his lawyer went, it's in the contract. If you don't do the rematch, this contract is over. I went, okay, I'll tell you what. I said, I'll do the rematch, but I'm totally against it. And at that time, I was going through my own personal problems, and I'd come to the point where I walked out. My daughter was there, Emma, at the meeting, so she can verify everything I've just said. And my lawyer was there. At that time, my lawyer was Neil Sibley.
Yeah.
Great popular lawyer. And
Yeah.
he will-
Good friend of mine. Yeah.
He will verify everything.
Yeah.
And I got up and I walked out and I went, win or lose, this will be my last show. And then out of the blue, Dave phones me up and says, I want to go and train with Lennox Lewis. I was sorry. Lennox Lewis is not a boxing trainer. He's a boxing person, but not a trainer. No, he's a former world heavyweight champion. And I went, you're wrong. Stay with your own trainer. Stay here and train. Anyway, I sent Joe Dunbar up to talk to him. Joe Dunbar tried to talk him out of it. He went, no, I'm going to Canada. So he went off to Canada and trained with Lennox. Anyway, and when the fight happened and the result was the same, I said in the interview, he was wrong to train with Lennox.
yeah.
And someone told Lennox that I said he lost because of Lennox. Anyway, so we were in the hotel and my daughter was there, it's Emma. And Lennox came up and he went, what have you been saying about me? Grabbed me like that. I went, what do you mean? You said, I went, no, Lennox. I said it was wrong for him to go to train with you because I said, he's 6'7". You were, all he is a big puncher where you were a different sort of fighter. I went, so the relationship didn't work. I said, and also, great fighters don't make great trainers. I said, I was never a fighter, but I'm a good manager. Anyway, that was the last conversation I had with Lennox.
How is that relationship now with you and Lennox? Is it
I haven't seen him
really?
because he works.
Right.
He works in
Over in the States and whatnot, yeah.
and he's
yeah.
in Jamaica.
Right.
But no, he sent a nice message when my story broke and everything else. Yeah, do you know, I have the utmost respect for Lennox Lewis because he's the one who made my name and my career. And if it wasn't for Lennox, I wouldn't have got all the contracts.
Yeah.
And what the 2 David Price fights, the Thompson fights, was my new contract with Frank Warren at Box Nation.
Yeah.
Because
Box Nation, yeah.
I thought, because a guy called Barney Francis had taken over at Sky Head of Sport.
Yeah, he was the head of sport, yeah.
Didn't know him, and the rumour was him and Eddie Hearn went to the same school.
That makes sense.
So anyway, so I get a call up to my office. There was me, Ricky Hatton, and Matchroom Boxing, all with Sky. So we get a call up to the office. So I get a call up to Barney Francis' office. So up I go, thinking, and I'd heard Ricky had just lost his contract, and Ricky phoned me and told me. And I thought, oh, okay. So we went up there, and they went, have you ever thought about just managing your fighters? And he was sitting there, Mr. Where can I put it? I had a lot of respect for him, but I've lost it. Adam Smith. He was sitting in the room and with Barney Francis. I said, he said, well, we're thinking of giving all our boxing shows to Matchroom, but we'd like your fighters to go to Matchroom and you manage them and take your 25%. I went, well, how do you know I take 25%? They went, well, that's what I went. No. I said, all different contracts. I said, you want me to sign David Price to Matchroom after all the hard work I've done building him up, because he was at the time he was still unbeaten.
Yeah.
And they went, yeah. I went, no. Adam Smith went, but make life so much easier for you. You know, you've had a hard. I looked at it and I went, Adam, since when have you become my mouthpiece? I went, I'll tell you what I do. I'll lay on the floor there, take my clothes off, and you can both. I might use the word.
Yeah, you can use your own imagination for that.
Yeah. I walked out the office.
Wow.
Anyway, so obviously I got a phone call from Adam Smith saying, but I'm still thinking about it. I went, I know what the answer is. I said, and you are two-faced, by the way. Anyway, so I put them. Anyway, I don't know how I was speaking to Frank Warren. Frank went, come and Box Nation. So I told Neil Sibley. Neil went, okay, we'll go. But Neil made the contract. So, and in fairness, Frank paid every penny on that from Box Nation, and we were looked after.
Nice.
Wow.
Nice.
And then, you know, I mean, I remember, you know, I've made people change in boxing. Like I say, Adam Smith has changed. He was once a really good boxing reporter. He used to come to training camp with Lennox Lewis. He was very good, and also become a commentator. I wouldn't even call him a commentator now. He's a cheerleader, because he doesn't give you the full. He doesn't tell you how the fight's going. Jim Watt, Darky, Reg Guttridge,
Glenn
McCrory. They've all gone. These are proper people who read fights and tell you fights, not tell you what someone wants you to be told. Not cheerleaders.
The world of boxing has changed so much, especially over the last 2 years. One of the key changes has been the involvement of Saudi Arabia and Turki Al-Sheikh and the funding that's come into these fights. What do you kind of make of it all now?
You have to take the money because that's your job. But I would take the money holding my nose. Seriously.
Do you not think that with, you know, the involvement of Turkey and Riyadh season, that took the politics away from the sport, where you spent a lifetime in your career going 60-40 splits, different networks, etc., etc.
And I went, yes, it's a marriage. Frank Warren, Eddie Hearns, a marriage made on money. Once the money dries up, divorce.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah, but what we're getting in that period though is the best fighting the best, and we're getting the fights. Well, as boxing fans, you're getting the fights that you want to see.
It's good, but again, I really don't agree with it. It's the British Boxing Board of Control allowing British title fights to happen in Saudi, because I do watch some of the big fights. Certain fights I still like to watch. I don't watch them all, but there's no atmosphere. There's no, how can the British Boxing Board of Control allow two fighters fighting for a British title, Lonsdale Veld, in Saudi, and half of their fans can't go because they can't afford the airfare?
Yeah.
I understand the big fights, the world title fights fine because, but again, they're only picking what fights they want. Gone are the days where fighters are earning the right to fight for world titles.
Yeah, I get it.
Even fighters not learning their careers properly no more. Some fighters are fighting for world titles after 12 fights.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, you're almost losing that traditional route now. Like a lot of people, they're not caring as much about going like British, European, Commonwealth, going that route. They're like big money fights or crossover fights or jumping straight up to world titles. You're almost losing that traditional route a bit.
Yeah.
We might lose that life in this age.
Oh, no, I can't believe what's actually gone on here. This is like outrageous.
We're
like
just sitting
we-
here pretending
we
it's
now-
not happening.
We've now hit some sort of storm where it's starting to come through this tarpaulin. Yeah, no, I mean, look, let's push on with the interview now because we are getting into a situation where we're gonna have to cut it and go short. And we've flown all the way over to Portugal to see you. But Kelly, I want to talk about that transition that you went through. I was there at the beginning of all that. Obviously, we had that relationship before where you looked after me as a fighter, promoted me. Then we had the relationship with, afterwards when I was working for Sky, you was a promoter of Sky, and we was loving life. We were going out. But then at the end of that night, when we'd all, we'd gone back to our rooms or whatever else, I remember you telling me once that you used to go back to your room, and he said, Spencer, what you didn't realise what I was going through when I was going through that period where everyone was thinking me, Frank, the man's man, and all that. But you was, you was living, a totally different life. But you said that you used to sit at the end of the bed, and you said, we'd go back there, and it was all like a false life that you was living. You'd sit there and you'd actually cry and all that. So, and you was going through that period, and I wanted to touch with you on that because I think now we're here now, and that was like back in 2014, 2015. Your life has progressed since then, and you're doing it. And you said to me, Spence, I'm happy to talk about whatever. I wanted to relive that with you and rebirth that with you because I remember having that conversation, and I thought that was quite, it was quite a sensitive conversation that we had.
Yeah, it was just like, I don't know. It's hard to explain how I was. I felt Frank Maloney is still part of me. It's still part of my personality. When we talk about boxing, he comes back. He's totally back in my life. I think what I've managed to do is bring the two personalities together and take the best out of both and make the personality that I am today. It's hard to explain, but I felt that I was as Frank, Jack the Lad, the Uni-Jack suit, the parties, after every fight, some of the clubs we went to, some of the things we got up to. I felt I used to get out of bed in the morning and put a suit on and go out to the world and entertain, which now I'm not doing. Now you're seeing the real person. And I actually believe if I was courageous enough to have done it at a much earlier stage, I probably would have been a much better boxing promoter. Because I wouldn't have had the internal fighting that was going on inside me all the time. How
emotionally difficult was it for you, though, as a person going on to the human side now, taking all that boxing away from it and everything else, but you living one life, but really, inside you, it was a totally different life. You was married, you had children and all that, but, Frank, really, now that's Kelly hadn't come out at that point, but you was battling with that yourself. How difficult was that emotionally for you?
It was hard, but because I had such a passion with the boxing world, that's what got me through it. I never had time to think about it. But when as you say, when I was on my own, I used to think about it a lot. I'd come to Portugal. I started disappearing a lot at weekends or the odd weeks coming out to Portugal because, I've had a house here for 26 years now. And I used to just come here and sit here and I used to think about just disappearing. But I knew I had responsibilities. I knew I had commitments. And I just kept going.
Did you ever have thoughts of, like you said there, to pick up on that? Like you said, you thought you just wanted to disappear and you used to come out of here and everything else. But did you ever have, like, thoughts about, like, because of the battles that you were going through within yourself, like, about, thoughts about, like, where you was going to take yourself, if you was going to take yourself? Like, was it ever, like, life-threatening to you?
Yeah, you know, I attempted suicide a couple of times.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people don't know I actually ended up in a psychiatric hospital here in Portugal after attempted suicide. You don't want to go there. It's not a nice hotel to check into.
I bet, but you know,
It's like
but that must have been difficult though, Kelly. That.
I think that was one of the shocks that sort of helped me pull myself together. But now I don't even think about it no more. It's just part of my life, and who you see today is who I am, and that's it. You know, I have a very nice life now. I live a very peaceful life. I'm stress free. I'm enjoying life now. I'm on the final stretch of life. That's what I say now. I'm going.
There's a few years.
I'm going downhill.
A few years left in you yet. But what I did notice about today, and this was beautiful. So we were obviously, you took us down to your coffee shop. We had lovely breakfast down there, as we all did, and then we were coming back, and you was touching base with some of the old fighters like Tony Yoki. We spoke to, who else was it? Wayne Ilcock, and the fighters that you brought through and developed, and every single one of them was saying beautiful things about you. How if it wasn't for you, then Frank, their lives would never be where they are today. Wayne was very complimentary about you, and the same with Tony as well. And I didn't know this actually, because I didn't know what sort of relationship you had with the boxing fraternity after that. I didn't know how the acceptance was or anything, because you sort of come over here and it sort of went, and we never heard no more. But you still got a great relationship with a lot of the fighters that you worked with, haven't you? And that was a surprise to me, because I thought that you'd cut them all off and it was all done, but I didn't know that.
No, still, Julius France is another one I really talk to all the time.
Right.
Julius actually came out here for one of my birthdays.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, I still, John McDermott I talk to. Not as much to John, but every so often I talk to him. Actually, we talked about him fighting Jake Paul.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he said to me, he went to me, if you could negotiate me £1 million fight, I will fight Jake Paul.
Oh, brilliant. Brilliant. Yeah, no, it was really nice though. That was a lovely touch to know that, you know, what you've been through in your life has been like quite incredible. It's an amazing journey.
People accept it. I mean, there are certain people who won't accept it, you know. I mean, I know a couple of promoters made very, shall we say, documentary comments about it. You know, my good old friend Barry Hearn said that when he heard it, he was on top of a mountain and he could have fallen off a mountain, which was quite funny. But Barry, I can understand saying that. But a couple of other promoters made and their comments were on YouTube, but all of a sudden, about 3 or 4 days later, they had been pulled down. I don't know if that was due to my lawyers or because of what was said in it, but you know, and listen, everyone's entitled to their opinion, so it doesn't really worry what, but it's depending. The people who matter to me are in my life, and that's my family.
Yeah, you're very happy right now.
It's like talking to your family and telling your family about what was going on in your internal struggle. And
my 3 girls was very hard, and obviously telling Tracy was very hard because it broke our marriage up. I'm glad we're still very good friends. We still, last month we all went. I go home. We still go out every so often as a family for dinner. So yeah, they just accepted it. I mean, you know, we just get on with life now. What's the point of worrying about it? You know.
Look, Kelly, thank you so much. We will leave it there because I know, well, the rain has stopped, but it's ice cold and we've taken up so much of your time. But it's been so good talking to you and hearing all of your stories and reliving a lot of boxing history and hearing all behind the scenes. So thank you so much for having us.
No,
Yeah, and thank you for letting us into your life and showing us, like, honestly, it's been fantastic to catch up, and can't wait to come back. It's been brilliant. Thank you.